How do we set boundaries? How do we set the hardest boundaries? How do we set boundaries with the people we love the most? So, if y'all haven't heard my story, here it goes. My dad, I grew up in a household with a mom that was in a wheelchair and a dad that was stuck in TV land. And when I say stuck in TV land, I mean like horse blinders on, the world just disappeared. And this was his life, most of the time, pretty much all the time. So in today's society, it would not be considered, oh, he's a bad dad. But the reality was this: while he wasn't a bad dad, he wasn't an alcoholic, he wasn't an abuser, he didn't go out and run around. It wasn't that he was never home. Hell, he was always home. It was that he gave no attention to anything except for the TV. I've never thrown a ball with my dad. I've never played catch. I've never went fishing, hunting, camping, worked on a car. I played football for 8 years. He never watched me play a game once. I was ran state track in high school. Never came to one of my meets. And I say all this not because I want somebody going, oh, poor Sammy. No. And as I explain here in a little bit, I have to thank him for raising me that way. See, that's part of the setting the boundaries. So through all that, and then I go off into the military, right? And now he's seen me off. And when I come home, for break or something like that while I was in the Army, hey, boy, hey, blah, blah, blah. And then boom, he was right back in TV world. Nothing had changed. Nothing. I'd been gone for almost 2 years in one case. Came home, I literally talked to him and seen him for maybe 5 minutes. And he watched TV the rest of the time I was there. And again, this isn't a woe is me, oh, Sammy, poor Sammy. No. Because this is much of an abuse as somebody that was physically abused. So fast forward to me getting out of the Army, and now I'm home full time, but I'm not living at home. I'm not living with mom and dad anymore. Matter of fact, they were in the middle of getting a divorce. And all I could think was anger. All I had was anger and sadness towards him. Resentment. But mainly anger. Anger was a big trigger for me. I would hear a song or smell, and a lot of us have these different triggers. These are the ones to pay attention to. And it would just anger me. Like, what did I not do as a kid? Why didn't I matter more than a TV? And then I would get sad about that whole thing and really question myself, like, man, I must have really not been a very good kid. Why didn't I ask him to go play ball more? Why didn't I ask him to go camping? Oh, wait, I did. It just never happened. That just wasn't the type of dad he was going to be. I got to a point one day, I don't even remember what the trigger was, but I got pissed off and I was thinking about him. And I said, I've got to do something about this. Like literally to myself, I said, I've got to do something. I can't keep living like this. Like I shouldn't have this kind of anger and resentment towards somebody who I love, and I love my dad. Why? Some people might ask, I don't know, but I do. Maybe it is just, well, it's your dad. Okay, well, and in this case, yeah, I do love him. But I still had a lot of anger. And one day I said, you know what? I got to do something about this anger. I can't keep living like this. And I came to the realization that at that time, I had a couple of kids. And we had went camping. And I was there when they caught their first fish. And I taught them how to respect people and protect themselves. We did martial arts, and I did everything with them. Like everything. In some cases, I was their coach. I coached softball. I coached Little League baseball and t-ball, which is really in crazy thing. If you ever get the chance to do something like that, it will turn you gray and it will make you go bald. Just saying. But I had a blast doing it. So in this, me setting up the whole thing with my dad, I had to think about it and go, you know what? I don't know that I would have been such a good dad that did care, that did want to do things, if he wasn't such a bad dad that never did. I don't know that I turn out the way that I did. Maybe I end up turning out as the dad that didn't care. But in that case, I had to look at myself and I look at my dad and I go, you know what? I got to thank him for that one. And in that thankfulness, I had to forgive. Forgive myself for never seeing this before. Forgive myself for letting that anger control so much of me, that sadness control so much of my emotions. How I let one person, no matter who that person is, control so much of me. So I figured out, you know what? I've got to set this boundary with him. And it was through the thankfulness and through the forgiveness. Now, I didn't see him to forgive him, but I was already putting it in place in my mind that this had to be done. This was the only way I could move forward in my life. And I said, well, sometime or another I'll have this opportunity. Now I know that I've got to set this boundary. I had to accept that there was a boundary that needed to be done. That will be one of the hardest things you ever do, is accept that you need to set a boundary to love somebody from a distance, somebody that you love so much. And a lot of times it's going to be some of your best friends. It's going to be cousins, brothers, sisters, moms, and dads. Now, by this time, my mom and dad had separated. Heck, I think they were even divorced. And that's when I came to the realization that this had to be done. Fast forward, I don't even remember, quite a few years. And my grandmother on my mom's side had passed away. And out of respect, now, I didn't talk to my dad. Not because I didn't want to, but if I didn't call him, there was no call. And so out of respect, I called him. And I said, hey, just so you know, Grandma passed away, da-da-da-da. And he said, well, hey, pick me up, because he only lives 10, 15 minutes from me. He said, stop and pick me up and I'll go to the funeral with you. And I thought, okay, here's my opportunity. This is the time that I get to set this boundary. Now in my brain, I had already set up this boundary, but now I had to physically let it be known. I had to physically say it out loud so that I could hear it, he could hear it, and then it would resonate even deeper with me. And so on that phone call, I said, Dad, here's the deal. I said, I don't want you at the funeral. Matter of fact, you're not allowed to come to the funeral. I said, and here's why. I said, you have made no effort to become a part of this family, ever. At this time now, you've got a couple of grandkids that you don't even know. You don't know their names, you don't know their birthdays, you know nothing about them. And you live 10 or 15 minutes from me. How do you not know these things? How do you not care? I said, Dad, I have spent years being angry at you, being sad, wondering what I did wrong, and I can't live like this anymore. I said, so no, you're not allowed to come to this funeral. As a matter of fact, and this was the boundary I set, I said, matter of fact, I won't call you again. Until you make an effort to call me and be a part of this family, I won't reach back out. I won't do it. Hell or high water, no matter what else happens in my life, you will not get a phone call from me. I said, but you will get this. I will love you every day. I will miss you every day. And I will think of you every day. That was almost 10 years ago. As far as I know, he still lives 10 or 15 minutes from me. And I've never made that call. But I've kept my promise. to myself and to him. That was part of the boundary. I think of him every day. I miss him every day. And I love him every day. These boundaries have to be set. Because you have one of two choices. You can either keep walking around mad, pissed off, or sad, or whatever that feeling is of negativity towards this person that you love so much. Or you can find peace and happiness in your own life. I talked to another person about this, and they were having a deal with their dad. Now, it was totally opposite. Their dad was a perfectionist. No matter what they did, they never did it right. They never did it just perfect enough. Never was up to dad's standards. And I said, you got to set this boundary. This person was to a point whenever dad would say, hey, we're going to, now these are adults. This was an adult person. That when her dad would call and say, hey, I'm going to come over Saturday, or, I'm going to come visit, she would get anxiety, like severe anxiety. She said, I'd clean my house to the point like I didn't know what else to clean, like it was military clean. And if y'all don't know what military clean is, that's like the cleanest of the clean, right? And she said, and I'd still feel anxious. I'd still feel crazy knowing that he was going to come over. And I don't know what to do. I said, you got to set this boundary. You've got to let him know that, hey, this is my house, and you will not treat me this way in my house. I do not live in poor standards. My house is clean. I'm happy with my life. If you're not, then don't be a part of it. Don't be a part of the life here. I'll come visit you. I'll come to your perfect house, and you just won't be allowed at mine. She said she tried it a couple of times. Dad would come over. She just couldn't get it to come out like, hey. And she said he would just complain. From the minute he walked in the door, she said he would complain. And I kept telling her, like, you got to set this boundary. Or you can keep living and feeling like shit about him. And you love your dad, so why would you do that to him or you? And I think she said the third time when he came over, when he said, hey, I'm going to come over, she said she told him on the phone, hey, if you're going to come over here and complain about my house, I don't want you to come over. We'll come to your house. And she said her dad was taken aback, like, what? What are you talking about? I don't complain. And she said, Dad, all you do is complain. She said that he took and got mad, got all pissed off about it. Said he didn't understand, that he didn't think he was the problem. And she said, Dad, that's exactly what the problem is. For most of us, we're not willing to set these boundaries because we're afraid of what's going to happen, of how they're going to react to us. Especially if it is our mom, our dad, somebody super, super close that we just love with all our hearts. But you got to understand, this boundary is set for you, not for them. Just like you won't put up with certain things in your life. Like kids come to my house, my grandkids even, right? They know there's boundaries at my house that there's not at mom and dad's. They don't jump on my couch. They don't jump in my chairs. They're not throwing stuff all over my house. Some people would say, well, those are rules. Well, I say they're boundaries. Whatever you want to call them. It's not allowed. And I love my grandkids to death. Same with anybody else. Why does mom and dad and whoever else matter more than that? It doesn't matter that they're your mom. You have boundaries set. You will not treat me this way. I do not want to feel this way about you. And explain to them, look, I'm setting this up because of me. I'm setting this up because I don't like feeling this way about you. I don't want to feel anxious when you call me. Which is, from what I understand, what she ended up talking to her dad about. And they have one of two choices. You either respect my boundaries, you either respect what I have set up between us so that I can feel more comfortable and happy about my life, and you can feel more happy and know what my boundaries are so that you know not to step over them. That's the big part of this too. Now that we've set a boundary, it's been almost 10 years since I've talked to my dad. You know how many times I wanted to pick up that phone and cross that boundary? A lot. More than I can count. Especially right at the beginning. You have set these boundaries for a reason. They can respect them, but you have to respect the boundary too. You set it for a reason. Don't take it back. And initially it's going to feel very selfish and uncomfortable, and you're going to question it. And just know that as they show you respect in the boundary, everybody that I've taught do this and seen do it, including myself, the relationship's actually gotten stronger. Because now we know. There's no hiding the truth. There's no pussyfooting around whenever they come. Whenever they do whatever it is that the boundary takes away. You don't have to act anymore like it's okay. Well, it's okay. You don't have to forgive yourself for feeling bad. Every freaking time. You set a boundary, you stick to it. And believe it or not, the relationship will get better. Or, and I'm just going to be honest with you, or it won't. And what that tells me is they don't respect your boundary. They don't respect you. And here's a hard truth, but it's the truth. This will sometimes be your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters, your best friends. And it sucks. And there's no getting around it. But at the end of the day, you're doing this for you, not them. Hey, if you want more information on how to set this boundary, how to make it eventually not feel so selfish, go over to discovermentaledge.com, set up a little consultation with me. It's free. It's a 15-minute call. Usually, I ain't gonna lie, most times we go to about 30 minutes. But go over to discovermentaledge.com, set up a call. We'll talk about it. We'll see what we can do. But this is a boundary that you have to set for you, not for them. Don't forget that.